All right, welcome to another episode of The Catholic Couple, having fun with faith, family, and friends. I'm your co-host, Bobby Fredrickson, and with me, as always, my beautiful wife,
Katie Fredrickson,
I'm the convert Catholic, and she's
the
the...
cradle Catholic.
Here we are on a special Halloween-ish episode. We've done a episode on Halloween and can Catholics celebrate Halloween. So if you're interested in that, I'll post in the description for this podcast. You can go back and listen to that one about Halloween and the roots and why it's really a Catholic holiday when we get into it. But today we wanted to talk a little bit deeper about monsters in general, and more specifically all
that's
the
all right. So this came from I like to watch movies and then analyze them through our Catholic faith. I really do.
I do too.
And I think that especially this time of year, it's a good lens. Might be a little bit more difficult to identify things, but if you look at old movies are actually really easy to, because you still had, we're so far removed from Christendom now, right? We're in an apostolic age, but the old movies from the 30s and 40s were not. They still had
you knew who the good guys were and
right.
The bad
They still
guys
had a context of right and wrong, a context of good and evil. They didn't try to blur those lines too much yet, right? So what is it? 1931, I believe, is Frankenstein, the Universal picture Frankenstein. And Braden and I just watched it the other day. And it made me think, watching it, there's so much to these stories are classics because they really are timeless, and they really do teach a lesson, a raw lesson of humanity, of life. And again, has some kind of Judeo-Christian undertones within it, but it's Mary Shelley. You read the book, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein?
I did. The modern Prometheus. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess.
Well, then we could talk a little bit about Dracula. I want to talk about Dracula a little bit because I have some historical stuff which I think is good.
Wolfman, he's such a good guy.
Talk about the Wolfman and Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh, that's one.
Well, just themes and different things that
the Invisible Man, the Mummy. Those are all good Universal pictures. Anyway.
Yeah, those are all the Universal pictures.
It just made me think about God playing whenever man plays God. It's not going to go right. It's not going to go well. And there's so many metaphors within that, and the way that he was warned and the way he pursued it for his own glory was the whole thing is, and it just made me reference back to Jurassic Park where, what's his name? The Fly, the guy that plays
Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum says, just because we can doesn't mean we should. And that is Humanae Vitae, right? That is, when you unpack what John Paul II wrote about science, that just because we can, because we're starting to embark on a whole new level of science and artificial artificial intelligence. And just because we can doesn't mean we should. And that we really need morality in order to guide us. And there's so much in these decisions that Dr. Frankenstein makes for his and creates this monster who never asked to be alive. And that's the thing, you kind of, in both Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, you ultimately feel sorry for the monster who never wanted to be alive in the first place. And especially in the second one with Bride of Frankenstein, he just wants a friend the whole time, right?
Well, that's also from the movie Monster Squad. Remember, Frankenstein was the good guy who just wanted a friend.
That is who Frankenstein is. And so you just develop such an empathy for this character that really just exists because of man's sin, right? Just exists because of a man trying to be God, right? God. And that he keeps stumbling on, and he has an abnormal brain. He has all these things that work against him. He was not designed by the designer of life. And just the consequences that come from that, and the ripple effect and the terror that it ends up being on an entire town from just one man's ego and glory to be God. And even says that he wants to be God. He wants to feel what it's like to create life.
And that's what title to the book is A Modern Prometheus. And the Promethean story has to do about Prometheus is the one who went up to heaven and stole fire and brought it down for man. And that's like the story, the lightning, he's going up to God and he's reaching up and pulling down. That's the whole Tower of Babel, is that's what man has been doing from the beginning, was trying to build a tower to get to God, but not only grabbing and reaching up, but to creating a place like the Tower of Babel. Not only was it like a ziggurat, which was like a pyramid where they were building to try to, they knew they couldn't climb to the top and grab God. What they were doing was building a temple and trying to trap God in there, to bring him down, to call him down, to make him be in this thing.
Well, we do that all the time. We put God in a box.
Yes.
We make God what we think God should be. And especially, my goodness, in this political, I can't wait till all these political ads.
At least we're not in a swing state with all the ads.
Oh,
the swing states, probably, the people are probably going crazy.
But it's right there. There's so many people that put God in their own box, that created their own gods, and then just, judge the world based on their version of God. It's very
well. That's even like, reminds me of the
my God,
the golden calf story.
Right.
When the Israelites, Moses up on the mountain, he builds they build the golden calf. They don't think it's another God. They said, no, this is the God that brought us out of the desert. This is the God. They were trying to take God and then say, no, this is really what you are, and try to trap him into this image. They didn't think it was another God. They're like, no, this is the kind of God that we want, one that we can control, make it do what we want. They were taking the God of Moses and the Israelites and try to confine them to this thing, and so that they can control God and make God do what they want to do. That's always what it's about. It's that Luciferian impulse of, I'm not going to serve. I'm going to do what I want to do.
I want it my way.
And then anytime where we reach and grasp other the things that we should be receiving, that's where we fall in that sinful nature. And then we fall into that Luciferian trap.
So these stories that are so timeless, that are classic, and even if they scare us, right? And they're meant to, like, this was one of the first, that's another thing I was on, like, again, when I was watching it, which I grew up on these movies, just watching that and thinking of the art, the nature behind the art, the cinematography, the way they did shadowing and made his eyes look certain ways. But it was all meant to scare you, to look at something that is evil. That evil is that absence of good, that the intentions behind creating this monster weren't good. What is it that judges a moral act to be immoral, or to judge a sin to be a mortal sin, right? Is that you have to know it's wrong. You have to do it anyway. Like the three things. What are the three things that make something?
Know that it's sin and do it anyways.
Yeah, but like the actual thing itself that you have, it's the nature of it. The actual thing itself is wrong. That by its very nature is wrong, right? And just unpacking that, looking at that. Why do we watch scary monster movies? Why do we watch, like, fast forward now into like the 80s, right? Slashers. Why are those made?
To scare people?
Why go and see them?
Because people like that feeling of suspense and being scared.
Why?
I don't know. I really don't like it.
You don't like it? You like scary movies.
I really don't. I usually fall asleep by the time.
You do fall asleep.
So the lights come on, I'm like, oh, we'll turn it. We want it dark. We turn off the lights, and then I'm usually sleeping, and she's left to watch one.
True, and then I still have to see how it ends.
Yeah.
Now, I think that there's a few reasons why people make these movies and people go to see them, because I think
now people are watching them year round. They thought it was just a Halloween thing, but I just saw something today that people are watching scary movies more, like, throughout the rest of the year as well.
I think that there's a good and a bad, right? There, and I think that there is a disturbed side of, our imaginations and our, like, can be very strong. And I think that, like, the disturbing part, it's like a way to
have an outlet for those things, and to
like bad though, not
vicariously
not a good,
live through.
Not a good outlet, like a bad outlet towards that stuff. But the other side of it is There's something to be said to be looking at what happens when things go wrong, to see the implications, to see the implications behind those actions. When you play God, this is what happens, right? So Frankenstein can show you that, like this creature who never asked to be alive, with this scientist who, because he could, he did. He saw that he could reanimate life. And so he went into graveyards and stole dead bodies and pieced this together and created God just for his own glory, to say that he's able to, but then the ramifications of that. So it teaches that lesson. But
well, we're getting there with that, the lesson of today with like AI. That's what these transhumanists, these people, these billionaires, they're really putting so much money into doing a modern day Frankenstein, where they think they can make machines and then put their consciousness into the machines. Like that's literally what they're trying to do. Like the guy Ray Kurzweil, who's one of the directors and creative people at Google, that's his number one thing they're trying to do. These billionaires who don't believe in God, they're trying to live forever. But our brains, it isn't just our brains. It's just our central nervous system is looped through everything. It isn't like I can just take my consciousness like a sleeve.
Do they? So it's
well, they don't believe in that. They don't believe in that. They think they can just take their consciousness out of this sleeve and put it into another sleeve.
So again, and that's again, if you look at Frankenstein, right? He has this abnormal brain. The scientist zapped him. He does these things without seeing repercussions from his actions. He has this blank stare. He doesn't really, think rationally, right? There's no soul in him.
You want to hear something weird?
Because you can't, that scientist can animate all the life in the world, but it couldn't give him a soul.
You want to hear something weird? Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is really verifiable or not, but this is something I did hear, which makes sense. Do you know what the name of the first nuclear bomb program that they did? Not the first two bombs that they dropped in World War II, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Fat Man and Little Boy. But do you know what the name of the project was in the desert, Los Alamos?
No.
It's called Trinity. And allegedly, from some things that I read, that what they did was they blew up the bomb, but they had some kind of container, and they put, there's rumors that they used like a Frankenstein type body, and that they were trying to create life too at the same time. This was going on. Why would they call it Trinity? Talk about anti-God. We're going to make nuclear weapons and blow things up, and we're going to call
trying to be yourself,
but
name yourself.
But name it Trinity.
Yeah,
it's that's the name of the
but
project.
Again, if you
Oppenheimer and those guys.
If you look at that, if you look at Frankenstein, if you look at Dracula, if you look at a ghost or a zombie, all of those things are missing what it is to be truly and authentically human. That you have Frankenstein, who's a body, but we don't necessarily have a soul there. Like maybe a soul, like a consciousness, but not a soul that, remember that a soul that is made in the image and likeness of God is able to have rational, be able to make rational choices, right? It means to know what a choice is, and is able to discern that, being made in the image and likeness of God, being able to have that consciousness of right and wrong, and freely choosing to do the right thing or wrong thing, right? And he doesn't have that. There's no soul there. He's animated by lightning.
So how does the story, how does the story end? He goes into the town, takes over, and then does he die? They kill him? How does it work? I forgot.
He's one of those that keeps coming back. Maybe in the book, I don't know how the book ends.
It's been a while.
But they burn, like he hates fire. So they burn he's where he comes to life is that big
laboratory.
There's a laboratory and an old mill. And so they burn the mill down with him in it. Okay. That's how the first one ends, but the second one, he survives it, just like Michael Myers, right? Like he never goes away, right? But what I'm saying is these things are scary because they're not authentically human in the way that like a ghost is a spirit without a body. A zombie is a body without a spirit, body without a soul. That what makes you authentically and genuinely human is your body and soul, and being able to make those rational choices, and being in communion with God, having that intellect and that free will that is God-given only, that nobody can make that.
In Monsters, like we were listening to that Jonathan Paz show thing where he was saying monsters like as an excess of one side or the other, like too tall, like a giant is like a too tall, or like this monster is.
So could have overabundant human features or lacking human features.
Yeah.
Is like what a monster would be.
Yeah, or like a combination of, like a dog-headed monster. Like there's, like hybrids, or things like that, where it's not a fully itself. That's like giants in the Bible. They're part demon, and the angels of God mated with the angel, the gods of men, or the humans.
Yeah.
And the Nephilim is because the women had they invited the demons in, and they made these giants, and that's all throughout the Old Testament. If you haven't heard or read about them, then just Google giants in the Old Testament, and you'll be surprised at some of these stories of, other than we know Goliath, but there's other stories.
So I think that,
so like if you would have seen it, would be like he's a monster.
Right. So I really think that a good definition then of a monster would be something that's not made in the image and likeness of God, but tries to pass off like it is, right? So like that could maybe have an intellect and a will in some capacity, but isn't made in the image and likeness of God. And that is lacking in something that we participate in who God is, right? So as human beings being made in God's image and likeness, he is the creator, or he is creator. We can create. He is love. We can love. He is justice. We can do justice. He is mercy. We can give mercy. We can participate in who God is because we are made in his image and likeness. And these monsters fall short of that in some capacity. And it shows that when you fall short of of who you are, being made in that image and likeness of God, that you are going to be lacking in something, or going to because again, evil is lack of good. It isn't its own thing. Like,
it isn't dualistic in nature. It isn't like one versus the other. It's a lack of it.
It's a lack. Evil is a lack.
God created everything good, and then the fall.
And I think that's something that we have forgotten. We think of evil and hell and the devil and all of his minions as a place, as a group, as something other, the others,
it's like,
right?
Darkness is the absence of light.
Yeah. Darkness is the absence of light. Evil is the absence of good.
Hate is the absence of love.
Right. And so is indifference, really. Actually, indifference is more the absence of love. And it's actually worse than hate, because at least hate is an actual feeling. Indifference is the lack of. So again, there's a lack there. And when we participate in a lack, when we are not in a fullness of what God wants for us, and we choose to be our own gods, we're going to be lacking, and we're participating in a loss of something. You're not gaining anything from that.
Well, before we move on to the next monster, I just want to give a shout out to Totally Catholic Tees, where I forgot we're wearing these. We got these from Totally Catholic Tees. They sent us some awesome shirts, and she's very beloved. And my favorite, Memento Mori, which I have tattooed on my arm. In this Halloween time, we remember our death.
Remember our death. And again,
death does not have the final say.
It doesn't, but we are participating. What death is, what heaven is participating in that Trinity, that Trinitarian love. And that's where those guys that were doing those bombing experiences, they didn't understand what they were calling themselves, because the Trinity is a loving participation of these three persons in one God, that when we die, we are to be fully then participating in that cycle. Whereas,
well, Oppenheimer even said something even crazier from the movie Oppenheimer. He said, after the first explosion, he said, "Now I am," which is a statement of God. I am that's always God. I am. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. Like he realized the weight of this, but look at me, I can destroy worlds. I'm like God. he created it. I can destroy
like God's finger. Yeah.
Yeah. And anybody who's in favor of nuclear weapons, it's like, you got to rethink your Christian position, because that's what that is about. It's about death. And that's kind of what the obsession, I think, is with these scary movies and the monsters. A lot of it is circled around death and being scared of death. A lot of people who, if you're not secure in your faith and know that when you die, you will be reunited with Jesus in heaven, that's our, you know, that's what we're working towards, to heaven and grace and faith and all that stuff to go with it, obviously. But a lot of people who they want to kind of look death in the face, kind of, to see what's there or what else is there. Like a lot of these scary movies today, that they're just like gruesome. They're like, they're gory. It's different than these old classic monster movies like you're talking about. Now it's like, how many times can I cut people's head off? How can I do all these things that are really disturbing and like scare you, jump scares and do those things, which are okay, but actual good like ghost stories and monster stories, they have a deeper story. There's meanings, there's good and evil. You know who's good, you know.
Right. And it's going to point you in some kind of a lesson to be learned from it. Like,
so what's the lesson of Dracula?
Well, Dracula is the opposite, is seeking everlasting life, right?
Through
sucking
other people's blood,
people dry, right?
And that's the opposite of our Lord. He gives us life by giving his blood.
Yeah, right.
And speaking of, we talked about this with our Purposely Catholic for a second. Did you watch that show Midnight Mass with me? With the
I stopped. I couldn't.
It's don't watch it.
Oh no, I don't know. Did I end up?
I think you finished it. It was short.
I think that like I watched a few episodes and I didn't watch others, but I watched the very last.
But it was like a combination of mass and vampires with this Catholic thing on Netflix that wasn't very good and blasphemous about about the Eucharist. And this guy was a priest who was like.
But he was a priest. Old. He came back.
He got bit by a vampire.
He got bit by a vampire at the end.
And then he was feeding people there with blood, and it's just so crazy.
But you know that.
So Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Bram.
What did I say? Bram.
Bram Stoker.
Bram. BRAM.
Bram Stoker.
Bram. I'm from Chicago. All right, that's how we say Bram.
Okay.
So Dracula. So the real Dracula is based off of who?
Ooh, that was that guy in the
Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah, that he would put heads on spikes.
No, not heads. He would impale them.
Oh, which I thought he had heads on spikes.
When you impale somebody, if there's kids listening, cover their ears for a second. Impaling them meant that the tip would go in the bottom and they would fall down until they came in. They'd be in the poles. But do you know why? See, he's always got such a bad rap for doing that. And this guy. He was Romanian, but he was those people was fighting the Muslims. The Muslims outnumbered them like 5-1. So his strategy was to kill these people in a gruesome way, and he would line them up all around so that they come and they wouldn't come and attack anymore. So he would kill these people in a gruesome way as a warning to try to scare these people away, because he had way less numbers and they were gruesome fighters. But he did this as a deterrent to try to keep the invading Muslims out of their country, because they were coming from the Turkey,
scare them away. So he
Ottoman Turkey. Yeah, he was doing this,
which is what the Romans did when they crucified people outside of.
But there's a story that comes from this. I didn't even look into this, but from the top of my memory, there's a story. I forgot. It's a famous. It was one night. They were like some of the first like guerrilla warfare fighters, where they would go in the middle of the night, which no one ever did. They would always go during the day. They light up. So he got his soldiers together in the middle of the night. And that's where they got the ideas like a vampire is like a bat. So they came in the middle of the night and like killed all these people while they were sleeping, and came in and like ransacked these Muslims as they were fighting. And he came back and I forgot what the name of it is. It's like a famous.
So where did sucking blood come from?
That's just part of what Brahms what he bought into, but he's loosely based on
like the castle and all.
Yeah,
coming in the night.
And they're like a real royal family. I forgot who's related to him. There's like some famous people who are actually related to Count Dracula's descendants. Hold on, I want to say it's the prince, the King of England. I'm pretty sure it's King Charles III is a real-life Count Dracula descendant. He owns property in Transylvania. The real-life Count Dracula was based on Vlad Tepes, who's actually related to King Charles III.
Wow. So the sucking blood thing.
So that's always that's been a thing from always. There's always been stories about people drinking blood, about getting life and taking their life, because the blood is the life source. That's why sin is in the blood. That's why blood had to be shed, because the Jews in the Old Testament couldn't spill the blood, because that was the life. That was always like a thing. Don't eat anything with blood in it still, because the life is in the blood.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but Jesus reverses that, and he gives us his blood to drink. He shed his blood for us. Instead of the opposite, which are people who are vampires or parasites. A vampire is like a parasite. They're
Mhm.
eating and surviving off these other people. That's what this whole story of that midnight mass thing, that this guy was feeding on other people so
Yeah.
that he can stay young.
There's some really disturbing things in that I still think like will come into my head that I don't like from that show. So don't watch it, people.
Yeah, don't watch
Don't
it. This
watch
is to tell you to not
It's
do it.
very
But I'm trying to think of the
disturbing.
name of that famous. There's like a famous that
So-
night where he went and like attacked. And like this is like Vlad the Impaler was fighting the Ottomans in the 1400s
In Romania.
and Hungary, and yeah, they kept the Ottomans Sultan. He came in and attacked them, but like a lot of people don't understand that the Christians saved Europe back then because there were so many attacks that just kept coming. From 1571, you had the Battle of Lepanto, where they came in to try to attack Italy and try to take Rome with the navy, and they got defeated through miraculous ways. We had this guy who was he was a devout Christian.
So are you saying Dracula was a devout
Yes,
Christian?
he was a devout Christian, yeah. And same with the guy who saved him in the 1500s and the 1600s, Sobieski, King Sobieski, who came and fought and pushed back, saved Europe from the Ottomans. The Ottomans were always conquering. They took over, Turkey, which was a Christian country. They just kept pushing and pushing and pushing through. So anyways, I digress. So Dracula was so all these and aren't they making a Universal Studio now? They're making a monster section.
Rumors.
Yeah,
That's
they are.
awesome.
They're
As
gonna
long
do.
as they stay true and they don't go with like the gross.
Well, they're remaking.
gruesome
I know
gore.
right now they got another version. That's the timeliness of these stories that they resonate with people because they keep making them and people still resonate with them. Like they're making another Wolfman.
They resonate because I think that the stories that last, I should say, the stories that last time, that are timeless, are because they have an archaic or an archetype that is something that's grounded in the truth. And that's why I think I like to pick apart movies in a Catholic worldview, because if it's a good story, it's going to have that truth, that nugget of truth to find and discover. And I truly do think it's easier to do that in old movies, and even an old scary movie.
Well,
but you could still find
any story that is good, it isn't always so clear cut. Like this guy's 100% good, this guy's 100% bad. That everyone has the capability of. Good guy has that bad side to him, but he's got it under control.
Well, even Frankenstein, you feel an empathy for, because he, like the monster himself. Yes, he's an evil in the sense of that he's lacking good. He's lacking being made in the image and likeness of God. That's his lack. But he didn't ask to be electrocuted up on the top of the.
So what about the mummy? How did he?
Oh, the mummy is
he's obviously that's Egyptian.
There's like a curse.
There's a curse.
They
unbury him, bring him out of his sarcophagus.
Well, they disturb his tomb, and there's a curse on that, and he goes,
Yeah, and the other thing with
it's been a while since I've watched the mummies.
I saw the one with Brandon Fraser. I've never seen the old ones. That wasn't bad. The first one was good.
The old ones are
Brandon Fraser.
The old ones are eerie and creepy.
But the thing about the mummy, right? The Egyptian stuff. A lot of people like, oh, those Egyptian gods. Those are all just like make believe. Like, no, what we believe as Christians is that the gods of Egypt were real. They're lowercase g. That they were actual demons.
Demonic.
That's what we believe.
Well, also the Egyptians would believe that they would take everything with them. So they were, buried with all of their possessions. And so that was the whole thing, that if you took a possession, if you disturbed those possessions, you were disturbing them in their afterlife, and there was a curse on that. So I guess, there are life lessons in that idea of that lack, right? That lack of an understanding of what the true meaning of life is, what the true meaning of eternal life is, and what that looks like. But also that goes into an occult, right? That goes into that demon worship, or demonic belief systems that again, like you said, they're not just false gods. Those are actual demonic entities, right? And again, there's people who were like practicing those things in that modern time too. These like priests and priestesses and stuff in that in those movies, in those old monster movies, in The Mummy, there's a priest and he's dabbling in those things, and he has
dark
an
arts.
amulet and all this
and
stuff.
The snakes,
So-
the pharaohs think themselves were gods, and they
Right.
always wore the headdress that made them look like snakes. They thought that like Lucifer is like a snake, a
So
seraph.
again, a thing that you can take back from that would be dabbling in those things, that those things are real, that you don't want to be messing with that stuff.
And then what else we have? Oh, the Wolfman. When he just got bit.
Oh, he's such a good guy.
And he got bit. How did he originally become a wolf? I forgot.
He got bit by another
he got
a gypsy wolf guy. This is again, these are a Romanian origin, I believe.
Goofy Europeans.
My people, my Eastern European people, my ancestors. But the Wolfman is actually a really good guy, and he gets bitten. And when there's a full moon, he changes, and he has no idea how to control it. That's probably a whole archetype. Like, that's probably something just of a coming of age, maybe of man. I have never, like I said, I analyzed Frankenstein.
So Wolfman, I would say that, like with the new moon, people get crazy and they howl at the moon. That's like a saying that people, those times throughout the month where we can't feel like we can't control our passions and our things.
Right. And really, he really is a good guy at heart. But when those things happen, he doesn't
know how to control it. He has no virtue to he hasn't had virtue enough to be able to,
exactly.
And that's like the Beauty and the Beast story.
What he ends up doing is tying himself up. And
beforehand,
when he knows there's going to be a full moon, he locks himself in a room and he ties himself up. It's when people stumble upon him and like let him go, and then he starts to find ways to control, to have that self-mastery, right? To have those controlling of those different urges that get him into big trouble. And he doesn't want to hurt anybody, so he starts to do things to try to tie him up. Like, he can't hold down a good relationship though either, right? There's like a love interest, and you feel bad for him. But yeah, that could be completely like about self-mastery and being able to conquer those things, and having to eliminate certain parts of your life in order to have that self-mastery. So again, you can unpack that, but I'm sure that the Wolfman has he's
definitely deeper, a wild man somewhere deep in there.
But I think that it probably has a lot more life lessons in it than I'm giving it credit for. Like I said, I thought more about Frankenstein because I just watched it. But I bet you if I watched,
to the heart does it with a silver bullet. Which is a good movie, Silver Bullet. You ever see that one? That's a Stephen King. The book.
And then The Creature from the Black Lagoon, that's from like the 60s. So I think the 50s.
Well, we're just scared of what's in the unknown and the dark.
Yeah, that would be more, because I think it is a foreign, an alien.
And the water is like, always chaos and the unknown, and we're scared. Right. It's like Jaws. People get freaked out because the chance of getting bit by a shark, but just knowing there's an unknown and you don't know, and that's the waters of chaos from the beginning of Genesis. That out of the chaos.
Right. So like water. You can watch these stories because again they have these lessons. I don't know how much a lot of the really disturbing things like Saw or Hills Have Eyes or whatever Rob Zombie ever makes.
The new one that did Terrifier 3, which is just gory and gross.
I just think that those things are entertaining someone's imagination. That's
not good for you.
Really warped. That's really disturbed.
It makes light of like murder.
It cheapens life. It desensitizes people to
violence and sex and gore,
and I think that that's just it gives a lot of weirdos a stage, honestly. So that's where gotta discern.
Well, I do like serial killer stories, but now I'm being more convinced that serial killers. We watched the Mindhunter. I watched Mindhunters again for the second time, but now I'm more and more convinced that the government is behind a lot of using like mind control to help do things with these people, because the FBI was working directly with a lot of these people, like Charles Manson and these people. That book that just came out, end result?
You're taking me down a wild.
Well, just real quick, there's a
rabbit hole
book
here.
called Chaos. I just ordered it. I watched it. He was on Rogan. He worked on this book for 25 years studying Charles Manson. Charles Manson was in and out of prison, and the CIA was using mind control things, using drugs and LSD to do all kinds of stuff. They were using
For what end result?
The end result was ultimately to get support for the Vietnam War, because the hippies, what they were trying to do is try to okay, well, do you want me?
So
do
let's
you
let
want
this mass murder happen to get?
He didn't kill any. Can I finish?
Okay, sorry, go
Can I finish? So they wanted the Vietnam War, and the hippies were against the war, this anti-war movement. So they were using somebody like him, who was in and out of prison, who they used drugs, and they used him as the leader to try to discredit the hippie movement. And then after Manson, the hippie movement stopped right away. They used it to try to control public perception about the hippies. So they used that as crazy druggy killers. And then that killed the flower. That like literally killed it. He was outside San Francisco. It's like in the middle of Hyde-Ashbury and all the stuff that was going on. So that the CIA, and documents that come out, the MK Ultra programs are real things where they use drugs and different programs to try to control people's minds. I mean, that's not conspiracy anymore. Those documents have been unearthed. But there's a book called Chaos, and he talks a lot about this. And in that movie, all throughout the movie, FBI is working and talking to all these different serial killers and listening to them and talking to them.
I thought that was to develop profiles to stop future serial killers.
Yeah, Manson's story is really crazy. Like if you go deep,
that's a specific. Can it be a both and that they were using that information that they were having for political reasons on top of getting profiles on these people?
I haven't read the book yet, so I haven't got a deep dive. I ordered it. It's coming in, so I will read it. I will report back. But I just do believe that, once again, this is man using monsters to do their work, their dirty work for them, taking people and turning them into excess, to doing these people who are already a little disturbed, who already had a predisposition to do evil,
like Frankenstein
bad things.
Did have an abnormal brain.
Yeah. So then they use that for as God. They're using these people for like their pawns. They're taking things and like Dracula, Dracula in the story, he was aristocracy in the story.
And he hypnotizes.
He used people to do his bidding for him. These people, that's the same kind of thing. They use, the same way the predators use people, they pick off people who are easy to do their to do mind control and to do, and then Charles Manson used that. He didn't kill one person. He got all Ted Winters, he got all these other guys in his commune, got them all amped up to start a race war and to start these people. And they're the ones that killed Sharon Tate and killed all these other people. He didn't kill anybody. Right. He was using them through his drugs and LSD and stuff like that. So I digress. So
that could be its own thing.
So the whole moral of this is it's Halloween. It's okay. Some of these stories are okay when the good guys are good and the bad guys are good. And we see that there is
bad guys are bad.
I mean, the bad guys are bad, and that there are some lessons to draw from these over excesses of things that we are doing, to not play God, to not play with demons, and to do these things that the evil is evil and the good guys win.
I think just watching, I was actually when I got my hair cut today, we were talking about scary movies, and she doesn't really like the girl that does my hair doesn't really like scary movies either too much. But we were talking about, like, she brought up Signs, like M. Night Shyamalan, right? And we were talking about like Sixth Sense and,
like thriller kind of,
something that does get your nervous system going a little bit. Like it's like that, there's something to, like, I took the kids to Fright Fest at Six Flags with riding roller coasters and having things walk up and scare you, spook you. There is something, it is exciting, but it needs to be, again, we need to be discerning. Discerning on whether or not these are things that are going to lead us away from God, away from, and get into that disturbing, unnatural, desensitizing way, or is it going to be a movie that helps solidify good versus evil and what routes look like? It's okay to see sometimes what a route would look like if you made the bad choices, right?
It's good to have a good picture of what hell looks like to know what to avoid,
or to see what happens when we play God.
What happens when we follow that sin, and then how it compounds and leads down this path of,
exactly, and that there's
excess of sin and lack of virtue.
And then you can have empathy with some of these monsters, and like I said, I feel bad for Wolfman's actually a really good guy. Just has
Benicio del Toro Wolfman, or just all the Wolfman?
Well, I like Lon Chaney Jr. He's the best. The best Wolfman, Lon Chaney Jr.
But not Werewolves of London, because you don't really like Warren Zevon.
No, I hate that. I hate that song. I hate Warren Zevon.
Well, there was an actual movie though.
I know. I watched it.
Not very good.
Oh. Anyway, or what's the Michael J. Fox? Teen Wolf.
Teen Wolf? No, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
One of the funniest on a side, because this is one of the funniest stories ever. I was on a golf course at a golf outing. Right. And my buddy was riding on top of the golf cart. And the ranger comes up and he goes, "Hey man, y'all can't be doing that Teen Wolf all up on there." I'm like, did he just pull out a Teen Wolf reference when he's dancing on top of that van and Styles is driving and he's doing flips up there as the Wolfman? That was the funniest thing. But I think about, I just seen him at a wake, unfortunately, my buddy who was doing that, and he brought it up. Like, it's just something we still laugh. They'll be doing that Teen Wolf up there.
So that's what it's called if you dance on a car now. Teen Wolf?
Teen Wolfing.
Teen Wolfing it.
So this Halloween, refrain from Saw and those types of stuff, and embrace maybe the classic monsters if it's not too disturbing.
No, the classic monsters.
But my favorite scary movies are the exorcism type movies. We live 20 minutes away from the famous Demon House, which they knocked that down. They knocked it down when it was called the House of 200 Demons with the Ammons family. But did you know that Netflix has a new story that's loosely based on it, but they got a lot of the things wrong with it? It's called The Deliverance. Glenn Close is in it, and Andrea Day and Omar Epps. It just came out.
I love Omar Epps.
It's about this house and this family, and we actually a priest from our diocese that we went to a couple masses, but Father Maginot, who did the exorcism and this poor family, and a lot of people. It's a famous case of the Demon House. That Zach guy bought the house, but he eventually tore it down. But there's
The Conjuring too is about a actual couple, and Annabelle. Those are actual stories of loosely based on a couple that actually does help the Catholic Church with the exorcism of Emily Rose. That's based on a real person. And again, those things are, they scare us, because that actually is more scary to me, because I believe in it. And as a Catholic, I know it's real. But we should never, and we already talked about this in the Halloween episode, that, the whole point of Halloween is to mock death, to mock these entities that do scare us, but we really shouldn't be scared of them, because Jesus has overcome that, that, "Oh, death, where is your sting? Like, you can't hurt me. Christ has me." So,
amen. Yeah. So this Halloween, stay safe. Remember the reason what we do it is All Hallows Eve. It is the day before All Saints Day, and then All Souls Day, which is the Halloween tide, that 3 days that we are remembering the death and the ultimate heaven, and those who are maybe stuck in limbo, that we pray for them. So on this Halloween, what did I say? Limbo?
Limbo. Well, limbo's in a whole other place.
Well, if you listen to Thomas Aquinas, how he talks about it, there are different. There are different.
That's a whole other episode.
There's different stages of death, of purgatory, and different ones, and Abraham's bosom and all that kind of stuff. So, but I digress. So thanks for listening. If you guys could be so inclined to make sure you hit that subscribe button down there, like, share, and it's this Halloween. Hopefully this is going to come out right before Halloween, so you can share it with anybody who may be interested in monsters and scary stuff.
I didn't think that this was a good topic. I thought it was pretty good.
I didn't really get down with the old movies. That's your thing, but I did read Frankenstein. I've watched a lot of the remakes and stuff like that. It's good going through and thinking about them, and why that those certain monsters have tested. They will keep the test of time. They will keep going. The Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, Wolfman. They keep doing nugget of truth. They keep doing it over and over again. But these Saws and these other fly by nights, Jason and Freddy, and like these are stories that are
Mike Myers will never die.
But he's like a takeoff of like Frank. They're all kind of takeoffs of these other things. But these stories keep appearing over and over again.
All right, you want to end us with prayer?
Yeah, in the name of the Father, Son.
Do St. Michael.
Yes, let's do that. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and do that, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. In the name of the Father, and Son, Holy Spirit. All right. God bless you. Have a beautiful night.
Do you like that?
Yeah, it worked.